this one will probably be even weirder. Doesn't mean anything. So then, I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the previous video. Wondering how to present this and if I'm even just pressing play and blabbing. Because talking about a lot of issues is alright, the important ones, but talking just to talk is it's not useless, but it's less than productive for me to you, for myself. I can psychologically analyze myself. You can psychologically analyze anybody. It's part of interrogation processes and practices. Give them enough drugs where they feel like, laffy-daffy blabbing, and just listen to what they're going to say, and you can profile them. And if you free associate what they're going to talk about and have them basically unconsciously free associate what they're blabbing about, you can actually access their mind. And that's the old method. Now everything's done electromagnetically. I'm already doing it to myself, regardless. It's actually mid-morning now. The sun's not out yet. Really weird energy cycles, depending on when my day is. Well, not day, but when my, So, that's partly due to a practice. The control system is hourly. It's a business. So the event is, and I mean some event. I'm not saying like the event, like any one particular person's definition, because I know there is something called the event. I literally mean there's some event that is occurring, and by some event or the event I mean that it's not outlined exactly which one or how it will be presented or expressed, because remember, this is a kind of almost like a picture book with multiple layers depending on the version of the person experiencing based upon their own unlocking of which layer of it. And the one layer is more like in the center, where it's not any particular one, but it's all of them. And people in human forms, physical forms, don't really have access to those layers. You can go into Dreamtime or through some of this technology and access it through like these out-of-body states, although it's not really out-of-body. You could say it is, but you're not in a human perspective when you're experiencing the central view of all of them. It's kind of like a visionary state. And technology, and there are organic methods. And technological method isn't really non-organic. I mean, technically you could say it is, but or you could say it's not. But it's getting caught up on the variation, and there is a discrepancy over whether the technological path will limit people from accessing a total completion of basically ascending out of the universe, and all that means is coming to a completion within what is kind of like a gravity well, a temporal well or cycle that the entire soul system is not trapped within, but is contained within, like a whirlpool or something. Eventually you'll want to expand to something bigger if it's there. If something bigger is there, and everything is a part of something larger, and eventually that continuously zooming in and out cycle, if it's not done properly and it's done partially, then it zooms forever and there's no completion. If it's done in a specific set where the expansion from one layer to the next, like a Mandelbrot zoom, accelerates the rate of acceleration at an accelerated rate, basically compounded acceleration, you get an exponential increase in the encompass of information, and one accelerates their experience outside of time, outside of the limitation of this universe. And so if that's not done, then basically one more or less stays here for eternity, but that equals pretty much not reaching completion, or not making it fully back to the highest form of existence, which is basically saying the highest form is creation, meaning we go back to the creation of the universe. Getting to the completion point is getting to the creation of the universe, and it's as if we were there when it began and we're there when it ends. If we get lost in the middle somewhere, we kind of stay. Another way to look at it is that the universe begins and ends according to our perceptions, like a book. And so we have to synchronize with the closing of the book Otherwise, when it doesn't add up, when there's a lack of completion. I can't really describe what happens, but it means that what was experienced was not a part of the original and overall process, and it's basically like being lost. And so the whole, what I'm looking into with the technological, or looking at with these words here, the technological versus organic, which is kind of just like buzzwords aspect, although it's real, it's important, but the main thing is that there is a lost aspect of souls. Basically, souls have been lost, or they're not lost, but they're, not lost like something is lost and it's lost forever, because there's that could be two words, but it's one word. Whether you lost your keys, if you lost your keys, until you go get new keys made and you forget about those, or say you lost them in the woods somewhere, they're not actually lost, because eventually you find them in the couch the next day. It's like, well, technically they weren't lost, you just didn't know where they were, now you have them again. So if, there's a discrepancy between a lost soul and a soul that's basically trapped in an intermediary temporal experience, or something like that, and then it returns back to wholeness. But the point is, a lost soul that never comes back to wholeness was never lost, because it never was found, because it didn't exist. You can't really lose a soul. A soul can't be destroyed. Souls are from the beginning to the end. It's just that people, in relation to the souls, can get separated out and move into a dissolution. And this has to do with the way the whole solar system is set up, and the Gnostic texts about, well, at least those are some explanations. Zoroastrianism, some of the Indian, like the Hindu understanding. I just had the other one. The understanding of, what was it? Yeah, well, some of these early followings understood about basically like this battle taking place, and that one has to secure their place in eternity. Otherwise, what happens here is temporary, and the one who aligns with what is temporary becomes temporary in their own right to the larger universe. And in the same sense, you could say that this universe eventually closes out, and we have to navigate out of the universe consciously in order to survive in a larger scale, in order to survive in the cosmos. It was broken down in very basic terms, but it is kind of complex, the actual concepts, but it's basic in the sense of, it's another type of life form that thrives on the energy of people, and there's not just like aliens in space out there, but what's right here and what's within people is a mutated form of like genetics, or an organism that is basically trying to take humanity down, just because somehow in the universe there's life that thrives and progresses and grows, and then has to be a resistance against that, which decays and degrades that. And again, with these basic terms, they say that however this particular realm or universe was created, it was created with the default, like an error, an error or a defect, and that entropy and certain aspects of what we call sacred geometry, notably the Metatronic system, is that defect stitched into reality, and the way the higher and lower portions of our awareness really don't operate in synchronicity, or they're not synchronized, in how it's as if we're set up to fail, and that it's like an improbable likelihood, like I said, of the other one, a video game that's so far against the odds for any player to play, that it's, not full of suffering, not hopeless, but it's just very difficult. It's very difficult to get to heaven, put it that way. But it's not impossible, and everyone that does eventually saves everyone that doesn't, more or less. Although that's, debatable in a variety of ways. It's really about memory, to the point where only those who do will continue to have memory of all that has passed, and everything kind of resets from there. In other words, the whole thing is in one big reset cycle. It's not just per life or per timeline or whatever, it's the whole thing. And to break that, someone must pierce the veil all the way through. And this goes back to the ancient understandings and what you could call Christ consciousness, and that this is basically a blueprint that humanity must move through, walk through, ascend through, and that, that's what has to be done. That's where this whole, I'm trying to like narrow down that there's an event, and there's not as serious, but there is battle for souls, and there is a war of souls, and basically an ability to be lost, if you will, but for lack of better terminology. But in the same sense, there's an ability to be found. So, some strange things. That has to do with the Watchers and Ezekiel's wheels, the things in the sky, and the Book of Enoch, and Grigori, and the Fallen. And these are basically timeline wars and advanced technology. And even the Ark. All of that is, there are ancient recordings of what went on. All of that is, it's this time, back then. So, the event is what has been prophesied as the end of days, the apocalypse, Armageddon. Armageddon is the past 6 cycles where there were resets because it was like a civilization collapse. The 7th cycle is where it amounts to something, and that is the apocalypse, where it's the unveiling. The unveiling, like I described, because I can only do barely any justice. What I said at the last video, the end, that it'd take like a week of just like nonstop talking to explain what 5 minutes showed us. I put a little note of, ignore that. That's basically just me exaggerating stuff and not being egotistical, but like showing kind of like ego, because it's just like it's so amazing or it's so complex. And I said, ignore it. So there's a good point to ignore, but there's a reason to everything, and it should drive home the point that the information of reality overloads 100% of the people who witness it. As such, the best and the first way to begin to introduce people to reality is overload them, or more so, to get them to prepare them to be overloaded. And so that's what that is about. It's not just like, I'm going to keep doing this for a long, long time and eventually you'll get a little bit of it. No, when it steps up, which it already has begun, and it's how it works through reality, people will be left behind when they can't keep up. And not like physically, but just mentally. It's way worse than physically. Imagine time leaving you behind. That's how people become the ghosts. And so that it's because people are holding on to their preconceptions about reality, and in that sense, when the truth begins to come out, it's as if they're moving linearly through time like this, and they look back and they look ahead and they're trying to organize things, and time is not only doing that, but the rate of increase as it's going is accelerating and increase like it's going uphill, and then it goes backwards, although that would mean it actually drops down in experience or complexity, the value. In reality, it's not going backwards. Space itself of the chart is bending like this, and so you have this convolution or this involution spiral, evolution and involution, where basically the world that was linearly a few minutes, whatever years, civilizations ago, is no longer even the same world, and as if we're jumping through universes of complexities where we at one point we're just going day by day by day. It increases and increases until the rate of increase is beyond what could be wrapped within a single universe, to the point where the amount of change qualifies literally creating universes as we go. That's what a civilization goes through when they realize what's happening, that the creation factor of everything basically merges with what has been referred to as the dreaming or the dreamtime, and it's kind of like a merge back into creatorhood, where people create with their vibrations and bioemissions, and it's very intense when it's not done properly. It's these feedback devices, an isolation chamber, dreaming, meditation, or visionary or out-of-body states. These are all examples of that. Imagine if the entire civilization began to do that at once. That's why they actually have these systems set up, because mind controlling people, to map them out, to know who's going to basically not handle that properly and who has what deep within themselves in an event like this. And some aspects, restraining people is better than not having any kind of restraints or seatbelts whatsoever, and just a cosmic 1,000 doses of LSD or DMT, whatever you want to talk about it, if you believe the theories with the pineal gland, which is not theories, it's how it's always been done. It's stitched in, which is also another theory, is that the pineal is a beacon for the control system. I want to talk about that eventually, but it's a fairly touchy subject. But without a control system in place, that occurs because of a cosmic release or something, some change in the environment. It would be a lot safer with the control system in place if something like that was to occur than without. Without, there's no chance. Not a chance. Everybody goes into Dreamtime mode, and subconscious becomes painted into reality like we're in a virtual reality simulator. No, nothing could stop that. Militaries couldn't stop that. No military of the world could stop that. People would just go crazy, go into chaos. And so that's part of the reason why there's a control system in such depth. But it's confusing. Ultimately, a control system even then couldn't stop that, because the people within must cleave between the light and the dark, the duality, which is just a buzz term. It's just a buzz term to get people on that wheel rotating. It's the shadow mind and the conscious mind, or the visible mind. What we know of ourselves, what we experience, what we're capable of, that we don't consciously know. It's like the icebergs beneath the waters. We have to round the two until we, not merge, not round it, not dull the edge, but we have to make the invisible visible and known. We have to dive into the subconscious and come back out. That's why this system is set up, because the people are capable of accessing people's minds, these dream machines, these neural networks. They are the tether to the diver of one's own conscious mind into the subconscious. If there's no tether, it's like the gurus back in time, the Native Americans, whoever, sitting around the fire, beating of the drum and like psychedelics or something, and the 16-year-old has to take a massive dose of psychedelics 3 days in a row, possibly like a week, and literally face all his demons, all of them, and then come back. And even then, the tether is the guy beating the drum and all the shamans around. Okay, there's tether, because they can sit there and be, he's freaking out because of whoever the devil, monsters, parasites, his own mind, the shadow, the darkness, fear. Okay, like that one movie. Darn, the Maya movie by Mel Gibson. Shoot, my memory's never usually like that. Oh, maybe it is all the time. I just don't remember. But the fear, it's basically just fear. That was what that movie was about. It was the virus was fear. They've been through it. Those shamans that are around there, that's the original secret space program team. They're all dressed in loincloths and had their tobacco mapacho rhythmic chanting and stuff like that. That was the same thing. Like, now they use technology. That's how it works. And the point is, imagine that kid out there alone, just doing it. Nobody there, nobody showed him how to do it. There's no watchers, etc. Okay, it probably wouldn't be as successful, and probably quite dangerous. Imagine a person from America going and doing it alone. In the woods, though. It was like the real full ceremony in the woods. Okay, that would most likely fail most of the time. Imagine like an older, like businessman or something like that. Okay, that's probably going to fail. Well, the success will probably only be met with failure, and that's the only way to succeed. So, and that's what's supposed to happen anyway. That's the weird part. But if somebody's not there to tell him, you went insane, like it ended, you cracked, good, you made it. And you're here to realize that you did it. Perfect. So that's the point though. So these groups are acting as the tether for the civilization that is slowly beginning to go insane. Insanity, that is the ascent. That's the whole point. And it's because we're insane now. Well, at least if you haven't seen this system, this process, if you haven't been awakened. And most people have. Children are awakened. It's not something like special, magical. If you just have that spark in you, it's, you can forgive everyone for everything that's been going on. And I'll get to this by the end of this. It's been 20 minutes. Wow, I just didn't even touch the... Anyway. I'm getting more weird because I'm slowly narrowing down the scope of what I'm really here to talk about. It has nothing to do with anything. It's basically like a dream. I suppose that's what reality is. We've been dreaming as part of the cosmic mind. But the point is, that's basically kind of like the event. So it's the apocalypse, and as well that so back to what I was saying. People are insane. I'm not gonna cut myself out. We're all insane. Just don't hurt anybody. But we don't know what's really going on here. So when we think we're going insane, that's actually sanity coming. And again, not hurting anybody doesn't mean like friggin' The Shining type insane. No, it means like basically like off-planet radio, Emily Moyer, Randy Moggins, when the time cone inverts and your subconscious is mapped to your conscious and your conscious is down below the waters, we first of all think of that metaphor. Well, we think we're drowning as soon as the conscious mind goes below the surface. We're not. We're divers, if you will. And in actuality, we're upside down right now. Our conscious mind is dreaming. We're in the waters now. That's the way. That's the light of the cave on the other side of the spectrum, the singularity. But it's not singularity. It's like a membrane. And so that's a controlled process. Disclosure is the controlled process of going insane to bring about a collective sanity, which hasn't been here for, time doesn't really matter. And so, before I go in 17 different directions at once, those earlier books talked about it. But so as I was being shown a few things, we went through history, but that was throughout the course, like I said in the previous year, the course of my life, and but during a particular event where certain things were being formulated and planned out for how to basically enact what is more or less disclosure. And that begins with the corruption. So if you see people understanding that there's corruption, then that's what it is. It doesn't have to have fanfare and flares and stuff. You see people going insane, okay, that's the beginning of it. That's what it is. And so it's going to continue to buck, and whoever has their hands really around the yoke, it's kind of the opposite. Whoever has their hands around the yoke, in the ropes to the bucking bronco or bronco. Wow, never mind. Bucking bronco or the bull, they're the ones that get thrown off. The people who are just like they like float to safety. It doesn't matter, because it's the reality that's spiraling to buck everyone off. And when we think we have reality and we hold on to it and it falls between our fingers like sand, that's when you get the feeling of losing the grip. When you let go, because it doesn't matter anyway, that's when you don't get that feeling. And it's the ride, that's the point. It's always a ride. And like Randy said in that chat, which kind of satisfied compared to what we needed to talk about, we're in dreams continuously. It's this demiurgic fall from grace into Sophia's forgetfulness. It's because we took one of these dreams way too seriously and we held on. Once we held on, oh no, now we don't want to let it go. How long have we been here? 10,000 years, 1,000 years, 10 million years? No one knows. It's a dream. Doesn't matter. It's energy. So we've been here like a royal cubit, foot second. We've been here as long as the energy takes for us to describe how long we've been here. It's energy. As bad as the nightmare it got, that's how many years we've been here. And so the point is with a lot of these systems is that to get out, maximize the nightmare until it can't get any worse. You'll find the doorway out at that point. When you get to the bottom of the well, you'll see the light. A lot of these systems are like that. But the duality thing is duality is set up to be transcended. It's not set up to be followed back and forth like a pendulum. It's set up to be transcended. So what that means is whenever you think you're on one side, it means it's preparing you to be on the other side. The one side is just the other side inverted. There's no sides. It's just one side. It's like an orb or something, or a circle. What we think is going like this is actually going like that. And instead of like that, it's spiraling. Instead of spiraling like that, it's spiraling like that, along with that. And then that whole thing is spiraling, and it goes. The thing about the Mandelbrot zoom is that I think it's 6... So it's 6 to 7 to 9 layers of divergence per plane, meaning per iterations of zoom, is what the universe is constructed out of. If you go beyond that and you didn't compress all the possible information of existence, it means you're actually on a side channel. And when you do that enough, more than those times, you end up in a parallel reality, not the beginning or the end, the alpha, the omega completion cycle of existence. So we've kind of been iterating on side channels because a lot of these changes of history, of knowledge, of what should be an ascent or progression, have actually been going like mirrors, like a hall of mirrors. And so and it's just because people have been distracted away from their self, their core value of what is to be progressed and grown towards. And as a result, what we've been creating is not something new each time or something going in a certain direction. It's like a herd being led in circles by some, rodeo clown or something like that. And so just because people are being led and not following within, it means the reality we've created collectively is like a circus, like a hall of mirrors, or like a funhouse mirror or something like that. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up to the overall. And the thing about what's basically coming and what we have to do, we have a limited amount of time here. It only lasts for the dream only lasts for a limited time in the collective plane. So we have to navigate to the wholeness and interact with the collective and imprint our consciousness with the soul and our soul into the collective in order to basically become part of a larger organism, which we already are to begin with, but we're broken off on this tether. We're basically in spacesuits right now, UFOs, and we're away from that wholeness. And again, nothing is lost, but because of that, it doesn't mean nothing is gained. It means that we're playing a pretty serious game, 9 layers deep in a time matrix right now, and possibly even much deeper, depending on how you look at it. So everyone's playing the game. Society and time has to add up perfectly to completion, otherwise the whole thing is erased, more or less. And it's the last chance because we've been here, and it doesn't mean that it's the last chance because it's like time's up. It means that it's the last chance because apparently the next thing that occurs, the next big thing, is that we make it, meaning the technology being released or a lot of the rough stuff. Just because people's hearts are awakening doesn't mean that there won't be a lot of craziness going on. Basically, those FEMA camps are real. They don't do dumb stuff for no reason. They look like they're just like 3 stooges running around paying for stuff, buying this and that. No, everything has a purpose. Everything has a purpose. And whenever they look like there's a catastrophe, that was to stave off a larger catastrophe. That's all they do. On the ground level, this is like the ground level upper lower management for Earth, for the surface. We think they're catastrophe fakers and makers. Well, they're actually managing catastrophes with smaller catastrophes. Doesn't sound like a job anybody would want, but imagine, some form of medicine, and I mean spiritual medicine at that point, where in order to stop from dissolving completely, one has to face their inner demons. So they're offering people their inner demons so that they can face this crap and move up instead of sit here in the bottom of the well. And again, if a person is halfway down the well and they're like, I'm good, I'm going to go back up, they're free to do that. Everyone who goes to the halfway point and they go back up, they bring up the sludge with them. Only the people that go to the very bottom and then come back up are actually clean by the time they get to the top. That's how it works. That's what has been found. So people who haven't really, the point is, you didn't go to the bottom, and you go back up, What are you going to do when you see the light? You're going to be afraid. What are you going to do when you're afraid? You're going to start to fall back down again. The endless cycle repeats. Civilization does that. We have eternity time stuck in infinity nightmare land. That's what we've been doing. We go all the way down to the bottom, face the fear, face the dragon, whatever it is. Get over your fear. Go back up to the top. You could get a little bit of fear. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to hold. It's not going to stick. It's going to roll off you. You don't need to go back down anymore. That's the point. People, and the point is, you didn't go all the way to the bottom, but you went halfway. Well, why didn't you? Probably because you saw what it was doing, and you resisted that as a form of ultimate change. Okay, the part of you that resisted that isn't you. That's the whole point, because you have nothing to fear. You're the eternal being, the immortal. So, and that's the point of us being insane in this reality, at least when it's the way we think it is, because it's not what it is. It's an inversion. It's the conscious inversion, or the shadow of a higher dimensional truth or wholeness of reality. It's just akin to a simulation. It's a poor simulation at that. And it's explained that somebody designed it to mess with us in a way. As well, again, what I was leading to is to mess with us as well, to test us. And that goes back with like the brain being set up a certain way and everything kind of being set up to fail. But as well to give people something to overcome, which in itself is seen as a kind of loop, because if we already had what we needed to overcome, okay, or to, we are already at the higher level, then in order to make it so that we had to gain ourselves back and overcome something, somebody had to take it away from us. So it's what makes us think and convinces us that we have to overcome this test to get back to where we were. Really, that's a kidnap situation, a hostage situation. We're the hostage or the ransom. We're the hostage, the bait, and the ransom. We're this situation, but that's pretty much the cosmic drama as it's played out. Just look into some of these other explanations. So it's described that all the ways you could imagine this being exposed in society play out, and these groups go from timeline to timeline, trying to manage the playing out of all of this. It's the same as both the watchers from the Bible and the messengers from God, and the true God, not the architect, because the architect's somebody whose handiwork is basically everywhere, including the lack, if you want to put it that way, whereas the true God actually doesn't have anything to do with this place. That a very powerful being has to do with this place, but has nothing to do with the real God. So it's confusing, but it's how it works. And if you look close enough, you'll see. If the true God did this, then he's not as good as everyone would think. If he's not as good as everyone would think, then he's not as good is, and either that or he's purposely torturing people. Chances are that's more or less an architect who manufactured that system in order to gain power. That's the fallen. The architect of this place is the fallen, where they wanted to pretend they're God. That's why everything is the way it is. And by them doing that, at this point, the darker groups doing that, owning everything, all they're doing is being honest. That they're living in accordance to the law and the truth. That if this disrupted, disturbed place was the work of the true God, then either they're managing his real, handiwork and his people, and if it's not, and it's owned by the false God, the architect of the illusion, well, then they're living in the truth, and either way, they're living in the truth. And it gets kind of convoluted and complicated, but that's pretty much what it is. I'm going to kind of try and lead it into there. I don't really want to talk about that, but basically the sun is supposed to be artificial. They said that when there were sunspots, and I can't remember if it was the 80s or the 90s or early 2000s, there were sunspots dark enough to the point where they looked in with their telescopes and saw machinery inside the sun. They said it was an artificial construct, and they even brought, and this is just like all the groups at that point, not like they to any one particular one that I've mentioned, but basically the knowledge keepers at this point, and they brought out a sun. It was like a baby sun, like it floated around and it's electrogravitatically guided. And when you look maybe in the morning at the sun, and it's getting brighter now, by the way, if you haven't noticed, and your eyes kind of automatically blind, and you feel it in your forehead, the heat coming off of it, and because it permeates some of the membranes back there. That's what this orb thing that was like, a few meters across, or maybe it was like 30 meters across. I couldn't really tell because you can't really tell the depth perception because there's no shadow to it. But this thing, it was a mini one. They can make suns basically, and it's apparently a form of fusion, not nuclear. I think fission. Maybe I said that wrong, but it's not nuclear and radiant energy. It's some type of cold fusion, and or electromagnetic basically. It's basically like a scalar generator. It's a transdimensional transceiver, meaning, or interdimensional transceiver. Energy is stepping down through a gradient through that as a portal, and light is information, and it connects with the information of the light of your DNA connected to the soul. That's why basically soul, get it? I mean, is it any more obvious? Soul, the soul, SOL, like Latin and Spanish, I think, for sun, and French maybe too, probably more. But and then soul, SOUL. Okay, the soul, light of the original form. Okay, is it any more obvious? That's what I mean about connecting words together, because they're a map of reality. You have to look into these other languages. That's where also early, Babylon story, twisting languages. That's where, though, it's like Tesla. He mimicked God. He split up language, and actually that might be the architect who seen people were figuring out the truth and was like, shit, I gotta stop that. Think about these things, think about these stories. Everything's reversed from what we think. But Tesla split up the information to every different country so that in order to figure it out, everyone would have to come together. And so imagine everyone was in one civilization back then. It was one civilization, and they were figuring out the truth, and so everyone split up and given different languages, to the point where now at that point we'd have to come back together in order to figure it out, and at that point we'd have to overcome the darkness that separates us. And imagine that story isn't as we think, to the point where some system lord literally came and teleported everybody into instant different countries. And you go back in time and look at it, and you think like, Babylon, soon people are going to migrate out, and there'll be some big disaster or something that drives people to Latin America and Africa and Egypt and other places. No, and it goes like night and day, one time, and then all of a sudden everybody's teleported into different countries and stuff, and it's like somebody's doing a genetic experiment. Hint hint. I'm not sure if that's exactly how it happened, but that's how a lot of stuff does happen, where it's like, there's going to be some reason why this is the way it is. It's like, oh, somebody literally came down and just did it. They did it to us. It's like we didn't actually grow this way. We didn't evolve this way. It's like somebody's doing something. Somebody's doing the whole thing. It's like an experiment for them. It's like Westworld. Somebody's managing people. That's the weirdest part. All right. This place it's a people zoo. It is what it is. They're trying to explain it to me, and I'm like, yeah, BS. That's what you want us to think, so you can rape us and stuff. And they're like, no, look at this. And okay. Somebody literally just teleported this group of people that is outside of this containment field that we're in right now, and they look like, non-human entities, and they just split them up, brainwashed them, mind wiped them, downloaded fresh memories into them, and put them into new environments, which literally just manifested out of thin air. It's like somebody's partitioning us all off into different realities so that we don't know what's going on. Some type of safety backup system that's designed to keep us in reality cages, in a time matrix. That's how a time matrix is managed, not just stamped and let go. It's a lot more complicated than a sheepdog and a fence and a Farmer Gerald sitting there going, I wonder what they're doing. No, they have advanced technology that beams into our minds to make sure that we stay within the sheep walls, or the fence. It's serious. It's a time matrix. It's not just a farm. All right, and so the point is, when there's that whole the concept of what that has to happen when the system is overloaded. Look into my other stuff. If you look at that, there's written a little bit about this. Maybe that's the next big thing I'll talk about. The methods of overcoming those setbacks, jumping the fence, or some people can walk through it, and that's because they're from outside the system, and so everyone's playing the game, so on and so forth. So as they're explaining it as well, there's only a limited amount of interaction front and back future and past, permitted because otherwise the balance is disrupted by default, meaning the watchers, the fallen, the messengers, the angels, whatever you want to call it, only a limited amount of interaction with humanity is permitted. Otherwise, they're doing. You can look at it any way. They're doing the work for people. They disrupt the timeline with information from outside to the point where now the whole thing's no longer a storybook. There's extra pages. It doesn't even shut right because they're not stitched into the binding. You feel me? They're not stitched into the book. Now it doesn't even work. And rewrites will have to occur on a mass scale in order to make that happen, and then that whole event gets removed. So you can't interact from the outside layer unless you're doing it in particular manners, meaning we have to take the hints and kind of read between the lines. But that's what's going on, that there's an interaction here between what you call the light and the dark. Although it's not dualized like that, because if you want to go that way, well, guess what? They work for the same team, or they work for the same boss, if you will. The one that's not the boss of this realm. That's why they can't interact fully, because we're the ones in the cage. They don't work for the manager of the zoo. They don't work for the CEO of the company that kidnapped all the animals. No, that's the whole point. Otherwise, they'd be in here with us. And so, an extinction level event is the default result of the balance being permanently disrupted. That's kind of what I'm hinting at or talking about. We have a particular amount of time until the balance cannot be maintained any longer. Just like the moon, Cliff High said in his recent one, and that's what they were telling me, and that's what individual independent astronomers figure out, and they have to send agents out to make a deal with this guy all the time. Not so much anymore, because people are not intent on finding the truth. They just believe the TV. TV squawks. It's fact. But if you look at the moon, where it would normally spiral in a specific path, like the spirographs, I think, like a pendulum that swings in sand, or sometimes you can, I think a marker, you could get it to sometimes do it, but more so, or you have to hold it and do it with the marker, but there's a way to draw it. But when it just swings and it goes on this path, it creates orbitals, and eventually there's like a big pattern, like there's spirographs, and there's other versions of it. So the moon does that normally. But where it would go normally, according to like its orbital pattern or gravity or whatever, it would eventually get thrown off balance. Basically, that it's orbit locked, where it doesn't rotate a certain way, and that's just the spin, basically the orbit. But as well, its orbit around I can't remember the actual term, not the epigee or something like that, that's a phase of something, but it would eventually, it does, if you map it out, it does move off. Where it would move off of a certain pattern that it's on now, every certain amount of time, somehow it realigns, and its inertia dampens, and it stays on the course, and then it accelerates again. It's part of why the moon is basically a craft. When eventually, if everything were to let go, if there was no control system, if it wasn't propped up the way it was through technology and illusions, every little facet of the reality would spiral off in its own order, and that would be kind of like the end of time. So it's being held off until people can manage themselves when that would happen. The idea is that we get thrown into hyperspace when that happens, and it's supposed to happen normally. That we're chilling, doing whatever we're doing, we're here, and then we navigate into a dream plane where all of a sudden our ancestors are, we can access all of time. Our DNA unfolds, basically. Or it activates more so, and the DNA of you here, the DNA of you in the other realities, all of it becomes one, and it's literally like we're walking through the walls of the universe, or time and space, which is really just a fancy way of saying consciousness, to the point where at that point everything becomes our dream, and we can access all layers of the dream, which is becoming a creator, which is also what happens as soon as you go into the other side. The only place you're not doing that is here, in a collective, physically anchored reality. The point is, there are huge generators stabilizing this reality. Look at it like a trap, but the idea is, if they weren't there, whatever you think would be your reality. Everyone does that. When that happens, it's happened before, all the secret groups go active. I mean, they're already active, but they're covert, not overt. They go over it, they launch all the bases, all the buildings, all the craft, everything, and every single person has to be tracked consciously. Apparently that happened the last one, all thrown into hyperspace, and for a split second we were in no time, and in that time we lasted for an eternity within basically kind of like a dream state void. Some people stabilized and found God or reunified with their larger soul family. Other people deviated in these outward spirals that these groups go active, track everyone in hyperspace, bring their consciousness back into material reality in another parallel, and this whole thing restarted, and it's done this way so that people have the chance to get to this point where they can reach that and know what's happening. It would literally be like if this world turned into this room turned into a dream, and everything I was imagining was right in front of me manifested. That gets into a very spirally type of feel when you start imagining based upon what you're experiencing, and what you're experiencing is based upon what you're imagining, and if you can't control that, it turns into a vicious cycle. And that's how people get lost. They get lost in time, and their souls pretty much go wild. And so the higher realm messengers, or the true God, is the cosmic anchor for your mind and your heart in that sense. And the heart, the personal anchor to the cosmic anchor for your mind. Because without that, there's no guidance. The compass needle goes wherever. The heart of Earth, the magnetic null point flux field in the center, that's the orient field. There's a word for it. It's like the subplane of reference. That's one way of looking at it, usually for time, or like a vector equilibrium will have a symmetrical plane of reference. That's how everything becomes balanced, and if you add motion to that system, it's expansive on all the parallels, or all the parameters or angles, but in a congruent fashion, like one of those balls that expands and contracts. I can't even remember. I called it a buckyball before. That's actually a carbon molecule replication. The other one is... Anyway. Well, it's all about reference and relativity. The point is, the cosmic unified center, the central attractor, okay, that's the one that keeps everything in order, to the point where when we're in that, we have to orient. I can't think of the word for orient, but it's basically like all compass needles orient to true north based upon the magnetic null point, wherever that is. And so that's how our hearts must align with the central version of that for the whole system, and in the sense our minds stay focused on the goal, if you will, or at least on a trajectory that is progressively referenced in a universal hierarchy instead of just endless side channels. Because when that happens, remember, if there's no reference of time, there's no night and day, because it's the end of days. One day of that, it could be fed with enough energy for that vicious cycle to spiral faster and faster within one normal day. For some other guy that's sitting there and calm and collected, and it's just a day for him, it could seem like 1,000,000,000 years for someone else. Okay, so if a person isn't balanced and harmonized, it's basically like a sure way to dissolve and to dissolution. And if a person's consciousness dissolves before they organize with that collector, and there's basically like a civilization that's stabilized within that great attractor, within that great field, okay? And if they don't make it there, then they don't make it. That's the whole point. Because say somebody goes and finds them and brings them there, the person that they find and bring there isn't going to know who they were here. They're going to be long gone. It'd be like a person going into, an insane asylum or isolation or something like that, and not coming out for 40 years. Now, well, the person that goes in isn't the guy that comes out, the guy already. Okay, that's the whole point behind that. But there are safety nets naturally, inherently set up in this particular place. It's the whole asshole theory of some architect that set this up as a trap from the original plane that we're all in, kind of kicked everyone down the well. As many of the safeguards as possible have been removed. And so that's kind of part of what's what happens. And it's happened plenty of times before. It's the only thing that does happen. It happens personally and collectively. It's just when that happens collectively, that's the great liberation. Because it can't ever be destroyed. It's just that people can get distracted to the point where it doesn't make sense. And again, those people that go down there into the abyss, when everyone does get brought up, but the point is that if they're not the one that left because they've been gone for so long from their perspective, because they didn't know how to self-referential or create a self-referential biophotonic field to make to become their own clock now, so that they can measure that against a cosmic reference and stay within the bounds of their cosmic game and the collective cosmic game, instead of spiraling into infinity. And by the time they knock on the door of their dream world and rescue them, 1 billion years had passed, and they're knocking on a friggin' spaghetti whatever, like a lasagna door, and nothing makes sense, everything's upside down. Okay, well then it's not that it wouldn't matter to get them, it's that they'd have to basically go into a cosmic like a R&R, what is it called? Like a nursing home, basically, for a period of time, an intermediary, and then get brought up to the heavenly civilization. And at that point, when they get there, they would have no idea what happened or who they were. The last thing they would remember was being here, and then they'd be over there. They'd be like, what went on? They probably wouldn't even remember being here, and that's the whole point. Well, I mean, there's specific versions of what does happen to the point where they would not remember being here, because that's the whole point. If they did, they would be themselves, and there would be nothing. Who would care then at that point? It's the fact that they'd have to go through a reset in order to get there, okay? Because it would basically be the generation of eternal time between here and there, because they would go, their internal clock would just go off into a spirograph with no reference plane, no boundary of how fast it's going to orbit. So in keeping that internal orbit, we're literally mimicking gravity and the whole cycle system of Earth, and that in reference to a central sun. The point is, there's a situation that occurs where we lose reference because the plane basically it destabilizes, and apparently it's already happened multiple times. And it has to do with 3 days of darkness, but apparently that already happened because in order to mitigate the sun, they recreated it after taking out the old one. Sounds crazy. It's one of the explanations, and that's actually what the 3 days of darkness were, that everybody's like, oh, it's going to come, but everybody's saying that because it already happened, and then everybody forgot it happened because of the ongoing memory rehabilitation, and we're actually in the nursing home, more or less, right now. An intermediary timeline, or at least some of us are. And some of the situation just talked about with Lily, Earthling, and Felicia in the ESG Earth Soul group chat, and a few others. Basically, now there's certain things that are weird to talk about. Like I wanted to talk about that because, but it was off camera there, and now I'm like, I didn't think I was going to talk about what I did talk about. It's 53 minutes too. I didn't get to most of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. But, man. So, well, it has to do with basically like a solar flare, in that, the intermediary timelines, and, leading up to what is to be a type of, resolution to the whole system. Well, hold on. No, I don't want to. Sorry. I'll touch on that in probably the next video. So then, the main focus is that for the roughest part of what may come, which for the most part people say already happened, is that with the old model of civilization, people become pretty much like animals when they don't get what they want and society breaks down. The infrastructure and the control systems that everyone hates, everyone is just flicking off and whatever. Okay, well, that's the thing that's keeping people alive right now. That's the lifeline. When that fails, when the systems that dole out food, water, and supplies and information, when they collapse under the pressure, people resort to a base level of desires and conscience, and this is what is pretty much described with the soul awakening and whatnot. That's the dark night of the soul for humanity, when the whole world more or less does that. And actually the whole world doing that is Westworld, is the clone central. because that's actually the only one that has to go through that, the Western society. What I was saying before is that geography is time. The other worlds are split up across the planet. You can literally enter a building, enter a device. Coordinates will be entered or tuned within the device through electromagnetic fields. When you leave the device, you'll be in another parallel, and it's geographically set up. Certain nations and states or regions are managed by different time groups because they're literally nexus point for different timelines. Very strange, but how it works. And when you feel different energy of a certain area, that's what that means. It's different timelines. You know, not just like a certain energy of a house or something like that. There's a specific way. Randy actually talked about it a little bit with the navigating the terrain. Okay, and there was a manual that was used in the underground projects. The other page of that manual, which wasn't a part of that chat, is that it's not just technology. Technology isn't. It's not just that nature is technology and you can navigate it like we're in a computer system. It's that you can navigate to different parallels, not just like navigate up and down the ley lines or something like that, which is not connected to the ley lines, but it's similar. I mean, it is connected, not entirely. It's not the beginning and end of it. So, yeah. From the last reset, everyone was mixed in, and there were multiple times as many people. So I mentioned in the other one, they went down. There was a war between non-humans and humanity. And they went down. They jumped to a parallel. When they came back up, apparently the systems had doubled or multiple times the amount of people on the planet, and there are a lot of clones, or what you could call genetic replicants, meaning it spliced DNA in order to create bloodlines that never existed. And a computer system did this. And so to the point where there wasn't as many people. They go down because of the war. They jump to the next parallel to stave off the infection and all that. And they come up and people are everywhere. And they're also dum-dums. That's the reason for the control system. The alternative is way worse. So everything is a show. Either clones are used in these so-called world events, false flags, things like that, or the people that supposedly died, and this is usually not the case, because even this is no longer used. This is how it was done in the older times, that they could predict when somebody would basically pass, and they could also predict when somebody would appear again, and a soul would be coming to Earth. Because it can all be mapped out. It's like clockwork. It's like everything is on gears, from the earth and the sky, the heavens, down to people. We just can't see them. And so either they're clones in the events and no one really dies, or the people that supposedly died would have died anyway from natural causes and are simply co-opted by operatives in order to carry out a task. And that's the older version, which really doesn't happen anymore. So the final point of this, which this is like the least guided, but maybe it'll, ask a couple questions to narrow down whether this was guided or not enough, or whether it was in reference to the other ones, whether it was more strange. Because I'm telling you, the real thing is just, I don't know, it's what the movies are made of. And the real thing, there's no governor on the information. There's no way to complain and be like, oh, can you slow down? It's just happening. So this has to do with the way there's limited interaction. So if someone has maximal access to information and clarity in this realm, meaning they know everything, they can do anything, so as in if they are from a larger system or reality, then this reality becomes like a game to them. Anything they do, well, they can do anything. Anything, they can't win or lose, they can't gain or suffer, because they already have everything that they could need or could gain from this place. At that point, the only real reason to interact is towards some other blueprint, some other overall plan, where they're basically enacting some type of progression for the people in any way, shape, or form. So that's how the others, if you will, interact with this place. Everyone has contracts and everyone reports to a higher up. Only that which is necessary becomes part of the game, or actually part of the reality, while every other kind of action or behavior that is not outside the game, corresponding with the reality that they don't need to do anything because they already have everything they need. So anytime they're doing something that they don't need to do, meaning they're chasing personal gratification or something like that, and this goes for anybody, but specifically the people who are interacting from these other levels, the Watchers, the Fallen, the Angels or Messengers, not Saviors like that, because that's a terrible way to look at it. But the point of basically, but although it's true, because there are safety nets, and I'm telling you, if there's a bomb, and SWAT moves in and gets the bomb, and it's like, oh, thanks. And some guy's like, oh, nobody can save me. And he has a big bomb, and it's like, here, disarm it. Pull plugs. Start cutting wires. Go ahead. No, he's going to blow himself up and kill everybody there. So yes, you could look at them like a savior. But if it's the mind in itself, okay, nobody can save you from your own mind. That's just how it works. You can go into a building or a project or whatever, and go into one of those tanks, and they go into your mind and watch you fall into the abyss in your own, dark subconscious, and help you that way. But at that point, they're just guides. They're tour guides of your own heaven or your own hell. That's what it is. So in the same sense, remember those teams play for the same boss. But the idea is that either or can only interact to a certain degree, and as well, if they're interacting on a non-eternal level, or a level that plays within the game, that's the only out-of-bound action for them. And in that sense, everything is recorded, and any unnecessary or inappropriate action is recorded, and they'll have to answer for it. If it goes in line that if somebody has all the power and all the information, then they can see everything. Everything everyone does can be watched and recorded. So even them, on the other side of this, well, they don't get away with anything. So there really is no, cosmic criminal. It's not how it works. The whole system is a result of the cosmic criminal. Even in the end of that, there's a return for that, a resolution. And it's because if there's somebody who can do the damnedest, darkest thing, well, then there's somebody who can reverse it. Why wouldn't there be? It's a perfect system. It's just how long we go into one or the other and permit illusion and delusion, darkness, unnecessary action to take control of our lives. Whereas if it's more important to us than the values of what we actually are, then it's not us, and it's external manipulation. The point is that people doing that are doing it in a way as a test, because there's always somebody one layer up that can watch them, and if everyone is interacting from a level where they're beyond the society, then they don't gain anything from doing one or the other. Therefore, the whole thing is a show. It's to see which way humans are going to go, and eventually, it's like a battle. That's the battle of souls. One wants to prove God wrong and say, I'm gonna offer them delusion and gratification for personal reasons and temporary wholeness, or illusory wholeness and temporary power, illusory power, and they're going to take it and throw away your eternal grace. And the other side is going, no, we're going to basically keep them strong. This is where the whole savior thing doesn't work. If you want to go to hell, then the doors are open, the ticket's free. Shoot, really, they give you $5 to take the ticket. It's a trick. It's a bad deal. So, but the other side is going to say, we believe that humans can make it. We believe they're strong. We believe there is integrity within them. We believe there is truth, compassion, free will, self-awareness, creativity, knowledge, and potential for true unconditional love, and not just animalistic desires. We believe in that, and we support that. And but again, if they truly believe, well, would they come bring us a bunch of crap and junk and be like, here, you did it? Oh, and they lie to us. You're the best. You're the wonderful one. They're the ones that would come and point out all the flaws and be like, look, get on your shit, okay, you dumbasses. And the guys that are like, oh, here's all this good stuff, this gold, and here's cupcakes and drugs and stuff, those are the ones that are trying to trick you. It's a reverse. Everything dualized in this world is a reverse. People who are being the nicest to you are the ones here to watch you fail. People that are being the roughest on you, telling you the most brutal truth, are the ones that are here to save you. That's why there's no such thing as a savior, unless you look at a bed of nails as comfortable. If you align with the bed of nails being comfortable, you can talk about saviorism and saviorhood all you want, and I will believe you. If you're like, no, they're beautiful and they're just going to sprinkle fairy dust on us and it's wonderful, they're going to save us, you're looking at the devil. And so that's how it works, but this will add up in a few minutes when I wrap this up. So the idea is that they're restricted to limited spectrum of interaction. Otherwise, the balance is thrown off, and that has to do with the original balance I described. There was a point where this whole thing is propagated by restrictions to everyone staying within collective reality. If one person goes off that spectrum of collective stability, then they're no longer in this reality. It's like a visionary experience. If everyone does that, then this reality is gone. There's no longer this reality. It's not going to come back. So, and everything is being kept and contained for a type of storybook play where until we figure out what we really want, and it lasts for as long as it has to. And the perfect one is that it doesn't ever end. But the point is that eventually the people holding this stuff together, they want to move on too, and they can't move on until we figure it out. They're both teams here stay here until it's figured out, until people choose one way or the other, until you choose to wake up or you choose destruction and delusion. If you choose delusion, that's your choice. But they're going to approach you, they're going to offer you a contract. If you don't choose, they're going to kick your ass, probably to hell, all the way to hell or halfway to hell, whichever is your preference. If you choose waking up, and again, waking up is a corrupted term. It means a wake after a funeral viewing. Okay, well that means that your real self dies. Then you wake up spiritually to the true reality. It means your ego dies. Anyway, you choose truth, compassion. You might not be approached, but you will see the horrors of those who didn't choose that. So what the point is, eventually that will merge with something higher. Those who don't choose that will merge with something lower, but the point is, eventually everyone merges somewhere else. No one stays here. We're not supposed to. That's the whole point. But the eternal place is a civilization that is basically a new civilization where we've done everything. Basically, it's back in time. It's before this all advanced or it's all occurred, before the fall. When we bounce back up, we're actually going backwards in time. It's just we gain the knowledge. It's literally like we go forward and we rewind it, but at this point, when we get back, it's that we know everything that happened. It's literally like a dream at that point, where none of this actually happened. We're in a cosmic mind dreaming. But the point is, afterwards, we come back and we know everything. So the same trickster comes along like, hey, want to come see my circus show of mirrors? No one falls for it. We can probably pat him on his back and say, that worked last time, but now it's boring. Get a new job. And he'll probably get back with his other job and be like, yeah, that was. I'm not the architect at that point. And he'll agree that it was a stupid prank, or it was a good prank, whichever. Stupid, good, dualized. It doesn't exist. It's just, it is what it is. We got over it. We got through it. Now it's not going to work. That's why. It's not stupid. It's not dumb. It's not new. It's not old. It's just, now we know. First we didn't know. Now we know. Nescience gone. Ignorance gone. Knowledge withheld, or not withheld, but inheld. And at that point, though, is it wrong what the fallen architect did? Well, again, it's duality. Seeing it as one way or another isn't. It's just we're in a position where if we get caught up on the extremes, it's going to last longer. So think of that. Is it wrong? Okay, sure. What's that going to do? It's going to make you grab onto this stuff, be emotionally attached to it, and you're stuck in his little playground again with you as his puppet. Is it right? Well, even then, what are you going to do? Okay, now you're going to join him and join the Black Brotherhood and make profits off of the suffering of humanity. What are you going to do if you're completely detached from it, or detached, and all you know is that regardless of what it is, truth must be known, and for truth to be known, you have to permeate and navigate through veils of ignorance and make it through into transcendence. And at that point, the soul is the soil that the light grows, the light. Well, the soul is the soil that the truth of reality, the darkness, the ignorance, the shadow mind is the soil that the soul grows through to reach the light of the visible. So at that point, you're not the dark or the light. You're something going from dark to light. You're both of it. You're beyond it. You're transcended. You're something else. But you contain the ability to be or see both. And that's why all parties are brought up into this show. This is the cosmic show. It's the cosmic drama. Everyone's working for the same guy. I'm going to keep going down, but the point is, with this particular part, that there's no way to hide anyone's actions. It's all eventually going to be revealed and going to be public. It's just whether people's minds are going to be able to handle it. That's the whole point. Thus, those harming others to get a point across or to sustain themselves in any way that is unnecessary for their own survival is part of a game, because the whole system is essentially free or restricted simply to what people want. Meaning, if people are hurting people and they think they have to, they're making up those rules, because this whole place is about what you want. It's free range. It's whatever you want. And if people are blaming others because they're vilifying them because of how they feel as a victim, they're making themselves the victim. That's the whole point. You can always look and see some person who was made a victim by life itself. They were born a victim without legs, or in a certain country or situation, whatever it is. And in any sense, if the pendulum is going, you're like, damn, this is effed up. Well, smacking that mother harder is going to make it worse. That's how it works. The only way is to transcend it. But it means that in reality, if you ever get somebody who has all the power and all the knowledge, anything they do at that point, it's like you have all the cheat codes to a game. It's meaningless. Playing the game for the worth of the game is meaningless at that point. In other words, the only way to have meaning there is to help the other people who don't have all the cheat codes play the game and teach. That's it. That's the only value. And the ego is the shadow of the true self, so you're either going to support people's egos and profits and get their illusions and delusions going, or you're going to show them that it's all a fraud, that the ego is a false mind and a fraud. Those are the two societies we have. And they're all both right here. So, which is why it's an interesting system. So, yeah. But that's the idea. Anybody who has that next level of perspective or power, this unlimited view, well, they can't play the game anymore because it's meaningless. There'd be no point. So the only thing they can do is interact with people who are still playing the game, and then you have the twofold of whether they're giving people one option or the other, and the whole point is they're both the same option, just from a different perspective. It's the people who are changing. You give them unlimited power. The other guy, the guy who knows himself, or the lady, excuse me, it's always guy, right? The one who knows themselves looks at that unlimited power, everything, and he becomes the true self, meaning he instantly goes to, yeah, I'm going to help other people up. The guy who's a-hole, give him unlimited power and knowledge, and he thinks he's the ego. Well, I'm going to make all the money I can, I'm going to get all the pleasure and sensory good all I can, I'm going to hurt people and cause suffering and enjoy it. He doesn't know himself. He works against people in the game, even though he has all the cheat codes. Okay, so that's the whole point. The same option, power and knowledge. The people, the guy, his or her internal compass, moral compass, is what makes the option one or the other. It's who you perceive when you perceive yourself against these other beings that makes them either the angels or the devils. That's the whole point. It's within. Thus, right, and so, it's all part of the game, whatever people are making. They make the game. And no one can say that they're forced to do anything unless it was to assist in what people want or in liberating the whole. And all personal action or imbalance eventually is seen through and revealed for what it is, and as such it is this kind of behavior that doesn't gain anything except for a lesson in ego by all involved, meaning the dark factions that think they're really gaining through this place of owning everything, and that don't know they're part of the game too, they're part of the joke by this architect. They get slapped on the bottom in the end, proverbially. Not a big, we're going to hang them all and light them on fire starting with their feet. Even though that's happened and it's disgusting. Happened to a lot of people, okay? You can also say that can get etched out of society and time using these devices, and in that same sense they were put in through these devices. So it's all these genocides and stuff like that. Well, we don't really know what's going on. The point, because there's really just one race, if you think about it, interacting with itself, or two. But the point is that the people doing that, in the end, they get an ego crush because all of their actions are revealed and everybody is shown basically like, aha, this is a simulator, there's actual, no death, there's no such thing, there's no loss, and all the people that like reveled in it all and think like they killed people off and this, that, and the other and hid their actions, everything is displayed, if you will, on a screen at the end of all of this, which is, personally, it's only reached by a person. The end for everyone all at once, if that ever happens, it means the whole thing blew up, okay? It doesn't really work that way. It's a personal apocalypse that everyone goes through this dreaming, and everyone slowly gets smarter, and maybe the government begins to have isolation chambers and access to the advanced technology, stuff like that, and people must be prepared for it, okay? These groups have to be prepared for, and they have to prepare people for it. So the point, because imagine in the future if that happened and time travel and all that, and it got taken over, well, we'd see timelines getting switched back and forth to the point where we wouldn't actually see it. I don't mean the Mandela effect to the point where we're seeing it now. I'm saying 1,000 years ago when there was no Mandela effect, that would be when in the future sometime the advanced technology was released and it went bad, and these groups, popped up and began going back in time, taking stuff over. That's what happened to get us here in the first place. That's why it's an artificial timeline, if you will. And what we're doing now is we're seeing the changes, it's being resolved. Because we're getting up to the point where it has to be resolved, otherwise it folds in on itself. It doesn't work that way. It's like a spin cycle, it'll break. Meaning it can only be the artificial takeover that led up to when people first released the technology and they went back and changed everything. Well, once they get up to that point, they have to let everything snap back, otherwise they never began in the first place, and the technology was never released, you see. So, or they do it in certain ways that it ensures it releases, but eventually that's the artificial matrix where they have to keep propping it up and making sure all these changes stay back where they are, because it's going to naturally want to snap back to where it was the first time, which is before any of this went wrong, if you will. But the point is, imagine the easy way to describe this is all the things everyone does, everyone in existence eventually gets called up in front of a big screen, and it's displayed psychotronically for everyone's mind to see. What everyone did at collectively at one point, at all at once, and as well individually, consecutively, as one after another. So all the people that thought they were hiding and getting over on them, it's a huge ego crush, because for that moment on, they were known as the person that literally had all the power to do what they want. You beat the game, you got the cheat codes, and what'd you do? You messed with everybody's head. Okay, well that tells more about you than it does about the other people you messed with. That's the biggest ego crush. Imagine that for eternity of knowing that, okay? We don't know what type of ego crush. Well, imagine you did something weird, really weird and nasty, and 7 billion people got called up in a circle, and we all watched it on TV. Yeah, well, that's also the point of why they're introducing this suffering and darkness to the world, saying, hey, come on, be perverted and nasty, because they feel like they're let off if everyone did it. You get it? It doesn't help, though, because some people basically are here for something else, and but again, there's really the people that are here for something else. Well, they're not interested in making fun of people for being bad, or not, for being bad, but for their flaws. They're only interested in helping people. So that's how it works. But that's the easy way to understand that there's really no loss, and there's no hiding, and the good or the bad, whether they both have access outside this realm and ultimate technology and power. Everything is shown through in the end, because if they have the power, you better believe somebody even higher than them that's far removed from their system, from their cheater system, because they have the cheats of the cheat codes, okay, and they control them. And but the whole point is that it can't be shown. We can't get to that big arena where everything's shown until everyone's personal journey is done, and that's when all the bloodlines, the lineages, it's only a limited amount. What do you think, we're going to make up races? From where? Was somebody from Africa going to mate with somebody from Canada and now a new bloodline that wasn't there in the past? No. You have progenitor bloodlines in the early past, or the early ancient past, and then they go on like that. That's it. Then you get whoever's here. When all those bloodlines make it to this level of unveiling the soul, that's when this experiment is done. That has to happen. Can't not. If it didn't, somebody broke the system in a bad way. Or a good way. But I'm going to get to that in probably a second here. So, but that's what I mean. That there's no real loss, there's no real gain. And the only loss or gain is teaching people, and the ego or the soul awareness. The temporary or the eternal. And it's all about what we want and what we define ourselves with. And whether these other beings, okay, are good or bad, it's who sees them and whether they take what they have for good or for bad. It doesn't mean there are non-human entities that are straight up here to eat people, or that's just how it works. It's not like they're here to eat people. It's just that they're, it's like a lion or something for space, but there is no space. But it's like a weapon, okay, a weaponized hybrid form, like a virus or something. But it doesn't mean those don't exist, but those aren't going to be there in that final scene. They don't have anything to do with that, so why would they be there? But all the bloodlines will be there, and that's how that works, because that's who is involved in the experiment. That's what is really being tested here. Who can hold the gold of the soul, and who's going to steal it all and fleece the innocent. Or try to, because remember, you can't do anything if it's all being managed from above. At that point, everybody reports to the same boss. Some are just not happy about it, and they want to lie as much as possible and make everyone else do the same thing and suffer the same fate of being crowned as dumbass liars. So the points of the system, the gains and loss, are not material, not held on the level of the playing field, this playing field, but are held in spirit, mind, and heart, the level above this realm, where one is either respecting themselves and living in accordance to the eternal natures of the soul, or they are defiling those values by living in subservience to the body or the lower values alone. Basically the same thing I just rambled on about. If one group has access to all of time and space, the minds of all people, the true intentions behind the scenes, the beginning and the end, unlimited materials or power on this plane or in this plane, then the only actual pathway for them is to ensure a balance throughout the whole in accordance with the higher power of soul, harmony, truth, knowledge, and free will. Thus, the respect of free will is another way to look at the only true gain, and the disregard of free will is the only way to look at any real loss. And the only real loss. And that's the same thing, that both sides must respect free will. It is the only rule. The only law. Free will. But if one wants to take free will, one wants to help people, it means they have to respect free will, they have to offer. They can only offer. They can't do anything other than that. The other one wants to drown people in their own free will, well, they can only offer and give people the temptation. And one is the master of temptations, and one is the master of being inspiring. That's all it is. And if you're a guru, both are inspiring. And it makes one pissed and the other one kind of happy. It actually makes them both happy, because they both feel like they have purpose at that point. And that's really all what anybody wants, is purpose. That's the main thing. Once you have the cheat codes, okay, all you want is purpose. And ensuring purpose, and that's ensuring the balance, ensuring progression. Or progression in devolution and degradation. Both is progression, just different perspectives. One wants it to turn to ash, one wants them to turn to shining, glory, to creation, eternal, creation, harmony with that central attractor. But the idea is that they just want purpose, both sides. One just wants to watch it go one way, the other wants it to go other way. And again, they can only offer. It's only free will. So as well, the only identities of the whole. This is about the ego or the true self, and whether we're actually living or we're thinking we are. Meaning thinking we are, and it's actually something else doing it for us. As well, the only identity is of the whole, thus those who live in accordance with or are enslaved by the illusion of ego, who lose themselves and don't actually know the self. They lose themselves because they never knew themselves, because they're not feeding themselves with truth. They're feeding themselves with ignorance and delusion, and that means that they're feeding the non-self, the shadow, the the imposter, the imitation. Very clever, very close, and that's also part of the architect, that this realm automatically creates an imitation version of you as soon as the soul steps into it. Meaning the avatar for a soul playing in this realm is one that inherently tricks your soul. It's just a certain modification of the biological format, where higher is reversed. Those who live selflessly in accordance to the higher mind, which is not selfless, it's actually selfish. And selfish people who are like, all about me and this and the other, they're selfless because they don't know who their self is. It's inverted. It's all reversed. And that's not because it's like, I don't know, weird. It is, but it's literally simple. If you're super personally gratifying for yourself, well, that means you're feeding you, which isn't the you, that is not the real you. That's the whole point. It's inverted. But it's not like mystical. It's literally, well, if you eat candy all the day and you think that makes you feel good because your brain chemicals tell you, this is fun, your teeth are going to rot out, you're going to get diabetes, you're going to have a friggin' heart attack, and it's like, well, how much did you feed yourself and make yourself happy by doing that, all that feeding to yourself? That wasn't yourself. That was just the body, the sensory system, and your soul was actually there to learn and profit from truth. It suffered, okay? So it's weird, but it's how it is. We're inherently within a duality, a paradox, a mind-body duality system. The true self is just a visitor here. So, those who live selflessly in accordance to the higher mind, beyond physicality and personal identity, have companionship of the cosmic one, and are actually themselves. Because we're actually the cosmic one. There's only one self. That's the point. It's like the outside of a circle, or a disco ball, where all the lights are shining on the wall. Well, all the lights come from where? One surface, one reflector, in actual terms, that is within the disco ball. Not materially for an actual disco ball, it's like the lights around that reflect off of it. The idea is there's one central sun within it, which is the cosmic mind. And we align either with the shadow on the outside or the soul in the center. And so this is not outward or described in material or physical terms, the cosmic mind, but in the harmony between one moment and the next, and specifically the higher and lower natures or essences, and the ability to transcend the illusory polarity function of the mind to contrast what is known and perceived as real now and what is not known and perceived as not real now. Meaning, I said that, it's just written worse than I said it. So what you know now being to you real, and what you don't know about yourself and what has yet to happen, yet to come, being not real, that's an illusion. It's set up like a tape recorder in a higher dimensional like cuckoo clock or projection system. But living within that, that's the mind that lives that way, and that mind is a projection of a degraded form of information and knowledge, which is literally like a form of digital information being rendered on a screen. It's not the actual information that's taking place. Like that mind is what we're operating through to view this place. It's not actually us. It's not the original mind. And so that is the duality, the primary duality of the self. The fact that what we see, hear, and feel, and or at least know with the mind, is what we think is reality, is what we think is happening now. Meanwhile, that continuously overturns over and over and over and spins and rotates to different phases and sides, and that is the illusion of the mind within this realm. Because that is the mind you know now, the now moment, guess what? It's temporary. As soon as you try and get it, on top of that, it's temporary if you just don't look at it directly and know that it's going to always change. Then you look at it directly, as soon as you capture it, it goes on. It's not even real. It's an illusion. It's like a fleeting a glimpse or an illusion or a type of non-Newtonian fluid where you grab it. It's actually the reverse, where you grab non-Newtonian fluid and put pressure on it, and it gets hard, and it's there. It's kind of like that, but just in a different way with the mind, the allegory I'm making. Because when you hold it soft, or you let it put it on your hand or something like that, there's no increasing pressure, it turns into liquid and flows through your fingers. So it's kind of like the reverse, where when you're not focused on it and you're not trying to make it what it is, it's hard, and you walk on it, and the now moment is real, and it's supported and supportive, and it makes sense, and it's linear. When you look at it and refine it down, you get a microscope, an electron microscope, you do quantum experiments, thought experiments, whatever it is, and you find the moment in your mind. You expand the focal point of the moment by refining it down to get to the actual moment of what is happening, to click over in your brain to make one moment the next moment, and it doesn't exist. All of a sudden it melts through your fingers like a liquid, or some type of fabric that was once suspending your existence, and then melts through like a gas, like a nebulous gas form. So that's part of it. Ice and water has to do with the soul as well, whether it's temporary or eternal, and it's actually the mind identifying with one or the other, and that's kind of what I'm trying to explain right here. That the base understanding of reality and the tendency of the mind to look at its view as the view is the primary illusion of this realm and the primary duality, because that always changes, always. And once you think you have it, well, eventually that means you set yourself up to go the other way. And once you think it's that way, you set yourself up to go the other way. Once you set yourself up by going here and going, it's not this way, it's the other way, and it tricks you and tries to go this way, and you say, this right here, this is what I have, it's what my mind is telling me. That's an illusion. It's actually going to go that way. And when you get it enough, it stops going, it gives up, and you crack something. It's part of these sacred methods, but nobody can really describe it for another person. You have to do it for yourself, because everyone is a different part of that circle, whereas there's infinite number of degrees radiating out from the center. You have to find your own particular one, and when it sends you back the other way of the spectrum, the pendulum, the speculum, and I don't know if that was the right word, it might be a medical device for some weird areas. And when you know your divine center, for at least, well, it's actually the extreme, the polarity, then you know your other one. When you map them out, then you know your divine center, your transcendent middle path. And you have to, whatever side you're on, eventually project to the other side, and eventually project to both, and you'll be in the middle. And when you're in the middle, the thing tries to throw you off that way, and you start jumping through polarities into a transcendent point, and eventually you jump into the center. And you're in the center of the spiral at that point, because remember, the pendulum, we think it's doing this, it's actually doing that, and we think it's just doing this over and over again, and it's actually spiraling and doing that, and we think the spiral is spiraling linearly. Well, actually the spiraling is spiraling, okay? Well, when you jump through the center enough, you jump first from one to the other, and you kind of reflect like a 3 to 9 o'clock or something like that, and then you get in the middle path to there, then you ride to the center of that one, and then you ride to the center of the spiraling center, and then you ride to this other center, and you eventually go to the center of the center of the center of the center until you're in all of them at once, because that's the point we're already there. We had to jump from the cosmic view through layer by layer by layer into this particular little microscopic view of a single person. There's no other way in or out. And in that sense, the way out is in, through a sacred pattern in your mind of negating that contrast swinging of the pendulum, neutralizing it, and folding, or like infolding into a non-dual state of awareness where you can't be pushed on either end. The chemicals, if you will, and the turning of the tides are like the bouncers that push you back and forth on the pendulum. Once you're in the middle, and you parry each one, because at first you begin to realize it's an illusion. They can't push you anymore. At that point, you control time, and you control one state here to the next, and the next, and the next. At that point, that moment, okay, you're the moment, and you realize it. Until that point, though, it's decided by you, and there's nothing you can do to stop it if you think it's actual, because you're following the states of the brain and the mind as the decider or deceiver of time and who you are. And when you're doing that, though, it's feeling, because it tells you how to be and feel. When you feel, it just is. There's no telling you, there's no having to do it. One is this regurgitation of processing that you're there being and feeling what you are, and then it goes up here and it's distant from the center, and you have to think about what it is in order to be it. When you're there and you haven't left yet, you haven't processed, you haven't thought about it, it just is. So in that sense, it's catching the illusion before it begins, meaning you come to the moment before the moment is processed mentally. It's going before time. It's strange concepts, but it's how it happens. The most basic thing, if you take anything out of this, be in the moment before your brain processes this mentally and tells you how to conceive and perceive the moment. Feel in the moment. Cancel the brain process out. Make the surface of your mind like a liquid that's perfectly calm and reflective, but as well you can see through because there's no ripples shining, glimmering on the surface. Then, when you're there, feel what is happening before the brain and the physical system is doing it. Do it, feel. All you do is feel it. All you do is be here. Be here now. Be present before it becomes an action, a function of your biology, of your cognition. Feel it before you explain it mentally. Okay? It's a slightly confusing concept. Once you get the concept is simple, then once you do it, it's simultaneously simple and a miracle. Because how can you do that? Once you do that, it's like you're bending time. It's like you're freezing time and jumping before everything exists. And it's actually how you get straight information from you. Because in that state, everything is known. But you can't also... The adepts through the years figured out how to get there and then talk about it and come back here, and it's like jumping realities, going into the dream state and coming back and describing someone's, your dream to someone else. It's everyone's dream, everyone's take on it is different because we're all coming from our own unique universe. But how you can compare that to this place, that's the pathway, the blueprint to giving others a pathway to navigate and see each other's worlds. If we talk about it in material terms, it's not going to make sense. If we talk about it in these pathways of negating the illusion, it's like passing keys and passcodes and cheat codes to other people. And that's the only real gain. So, this is not real. This, what we perceive, the idea of what we perceive as now is real and happening, and what we don't perceive now as being not real and off in mind and something else, those are the fluctuations similar to the tides. The low tide is not any less the ocean than the high tide, just as much as the exhale is not any less important than the inhale, or waking and sleeping, eating and expelling, listening and speaking. Without one, there is no other. One is the other from another perspective, and if there is no other to witness both sides, then neither exist. Meaning, without someone to listen, there is no such thing as speaking. One can speak to themselves, but this is not the same dynamic unless one has two minds, which we do. That was kind of like a cliffhanger. Alright, and so, the idea, that was the end. Well, that was the beginning. The idea is, because it's the beginning of your part now. The whole point of the good versus evil, the game, waking people up, the fluffy good guys here to give you cupcakes and puppy dogs are the ones who are wanting to see you drown in misery here because it's an illusion. They're appeasing your illusory self. And the guys who seem like just brutal assholes that are just telling you the truth and it's nothing you like about yourself, and they're pointing out all the flaws and giving you that darkness, that darkest view of you, the shadow mind, exposing the shadow. Someone on the forums said, I don't know if he wants me to say his name, but he said he had to come onto this world stage so that the bright lights, and he didn't say bright, but I'm going to spruce it up, the bright lights could cast his shadow on the stage and show him his true other half. And that's the benefit. It's not as much here for them, it's here for you. And in that sense, when they see their shadow, because you can cast it by telling them it's all bullshit, you're giving them the same gift that you've been given. And that's the gift, to show them it's bullshit, to crack the illusion. Because again, if you give them puppy dogs and effing butterflies and cupcakes, they're going to be lost for a long time. And then they're going to see the real reality, and it's going to crack their illusion so bad they're going to not like it, okay? So give them the shadow now, help them out. Give them access to that vault. But that's the point. So, but in that sense, who we think is the good guys, they're the devils. Who we think is the meanies, because they're just being mean, they're helping you out. You're going to figure that out anyway. Wouldn't you rather figure it out now and get over it and learn, okay? And become impervious to that darkness? So that's what it is. And again, no one has to get hurt. It's a mind experiment, a thought experiment, a cosmic experiment. No one has to literally beat somebody up and hurt them and do any of this nasty stuff to embrace the shadow mind. No, if anyone does that, it's because they were confused or because they're taking some type of controlled aspect of the experiment, and they're going to have to answer for it in the end. And when it's all displayed, which it will be, if they really were controlling the experiment in order to help people, it's either for the help or for not help, then they'll sit there and it'll speak for itself, themselves, their energy will. If they were faking and doing nasty stuff because they were just faking, like, yeah, we're going to help wake the world up and this, that, and we have to face the shadow mind, and now we know, it's like we're doing it, their energy, when it's all displayed in front of the world, will tell on them. It's all already done. It's all written. But the point is, so there's one method. I'm going to leave you with something weird here. This one is 2 hours, wow. In the first 50 minutes, anyway. There's the movie, what, with Liam Neeson. I was about to do the Key and Peele thing. And so, where these guys hijacked an airplane, setting up the main guy as the bad guy, and I'm not giving away anything. It's non-stop, that movie. And so yeah, watch it. But they set him up, and it was because and this isn't really a cliffhanger, but maybe it is, or not cliffhanger, a warning. What is it called? spoilers, excuse me, I had to say the phrase. When basically, it's not really a cliffhanger or a spoiler, but yeah, it could be. So if you're gonna plan on watching it, don't listen to this part. And I'm pretty much done with the talk, except for something at the very end. So basically, they didn't like 9/11, these terrorists, and they think the whole security system is a front and a fraud. So their plan is to take down the plane, make the whole world think an air marshal did it because he was unstable, and basically ruin the whole move for higher security, or at least ruin people's confidence in the system, and in that sense prove it's corrupt, even by it's illegitimate inadvertently, or by a no direct fault of intention of being corrupt, not no direct fault, but no intention of being corrupt, but corrupt by simply not being smart enough and good enough and well enough, not well enough constructed. I can't think of the words right now. And so they desired that taking down a corrupt bureaucracy is the only way to save the country, to save the people, and they were fighting for freedom, they were fighting for the truth, they were fighting for humanity and to protect people. So that's one of the issues that we have going on right now. Then there's another movie, oh man, what is it? With Arnold Schwarzenegger with Raw Deal, Schwarzenegger. Wow, that sounded bad. I tried to say it with the Austrian accent. It was called Raw Deal. It was from the 80s, where he I swear I didn't say that. He basically, I'm not gonna spoil that one either. That's a good one too. It's a real good one. Watch that. He goes in as a double agent, and his boss in the beginning of the movie says basically they have people in hiding to snitch on the mob, and everyone's in hiding. Everyone that's in hiding and witness protection is getting found out, and so there's a leak within the bureau, basically. So he says every inside guy is getting nabbed, every inside guy is getting found out. So his plan is to send someone in that only he knows is an actual agent, and there are probably a couple other movies that are like this. His plan is to send someone in, Arnold. What is his name? I don't even know. This not anyway. The character lives on. And so it's to have him go in undercover, but to not have paperwork, to not have anyone know what. With the escape plan was one where he goes in as a prisoner to figure out how to break out. It was actually a setup, but no one knows that he's in. That's just one that I can think of, which is actually a good movie in itself. They put a lot of hints in these movies. That was with Sylvester Stallone. Now I'm thinking of other movies where people were put in as double agents, but there was nobody on the outside basically to rescue them if something goes wrong. There's a couple ones out there, a few. So his idea is to put him in the mob, embed him, and have no paperwork, and to not tell anyone with the bureau at all, because if they do, the leak is going to find out. They're going to find out he's there and kill him. So the point is that if everyone eventually gets found out, everyone who's here to help and is a double agent or investigating or a spy, the only way is to have a double agent, is to have somebody who's there, more or less, and is completely unhinged or completely without a tether to the real, and as well to be completely unhinged on what they're capable of, more or less. And again, this was part of the movie proven. It matched up because at one point he was supposed to kill his boss, and he didn't, obviously. I'm not going to go any further than that because it'll spoil too much. But that's the whole point. It's not like anything goes. It's just the fact of anything to keep going and not blow your cover. But the point is, because every inside guy is found out, double agents are required, or double agents, and they have no paper trail, no verification. No one knows. That's basically what's happening in this society. the last thing I'm going to say is going to seem real weird, but just think about what I said with the white hats and the black hats, and how the white hats are really the black hats and the black hats are really the white hats. The devil is an inside man. The whole thing is an inside job. It's pretty much what it is. The only way to find the truth is to look in the place you would least expect it, which is the dark. Last thing is something Professor, I think, Stanislav Grof is I hope he had a middle name or not. Stanislav Grof, MD, is that there's an old, I think it was an Indian, like a proverb, where there was a guy under a spotlight looking for something on the ground fervently. And so another man who sees him doing that walks over and says, "What are you looking for?" And he says, "I'm looking for my key." And the first man asked, I guess the second man at that point, "Well, where did you lose it?" And he says, "Over there in the dark." And he says, "Well, why are you looking over here?" "Because I have no chance of finding it over there," he says. So that's he was correlating that's basically Western laughter, uproarious laughter. Maybe I didn't say it right. That's Western society, the conscious mind, and material science. They can only find what's conceived, what's material, what's reductionist, what's direct. The outer, beginning, end, the creation, destruction, the source, the completion, the true nature behind the scene of the conscious mind into the subconscious and the superconscious, it's immeasurable. It's non-physical. It's energy. They don't have a way of finding the truth and measuring it through these means, so they say there is no truth. The only way to get people to face the truth is to force them to look where they don't want to look, because it's where the only place they can't take anything back, prove anything, and really know what's real other than what they feel within. And when we're a materialistic Western world, stuck on these ideals, stuck in the ego consciousness, stuck in the body consciousness, stuck in the material addiction, well, that's the last place we want to be. So who's better than the king of darkness, or the prince of darkness himself? He's the prince because there's only one king. He's telling you, I'm the prince. Why? Because his boss is the real boss of everyone. It's an inside job. Alright, enjoy. Told you it was going to be weird.